My name is Carlton Cartwright. I am the Executive Director for the Veterans Memorial and Multicultural Histories Incorporated. Today is July 17th, 2023. We are at RAC Mortgage Banker in Tampa, Florida. And sir, what is your name?
John Liccione.
Okay, Liccione, pleasure to meet you.
You too.
What branch of the service were you in?
U.S. Air Force, active duty 4 years, and then active reserves another 2.
Okay, and what were you doing before you went into service?
I was working 2 jobs. I was driving a bakery truck and serving as a stock boy in a grocery company up in a grocery store up in Conklin, New York. And I was going crazy because it was mindless work, and I wanted to go to college to be an electrical engineer, but I didn't have money for college, so I ended up enlisting. And when I took the test, you know, the recruiter test, and they said I had a good score, they offered me a linguist job. So so at 18 in Scranton, PA, I took the oath to defend the U.S. Constitution from all enemies, foreign and domestic, which an oath I carry with me today.
Okay.
And I held up my hand and took that oath. I enlisted, and I could go on with more if you'd like me to tell more, but I'll pause here.
Why did you choose that branch of the service?
Because I love airplanes.
Okay. Hey.
And I saw myself ultimately going to the Air Force Academy in Colorado Springs and becoming a pilot.
Okay. Did you do that?
No.
Okay.
I went into it intelligence and linguist, and there's a story behind that. I was going to apply to the Air Force Academy. I was enlisted. I was a sergeant at the time, and there's a whole backstory about what happened there. But anyway, my career path was intelligence and signals intelligence, and I loved the work. I was very good at it. I was a leader in that area. I helped my peers that were struggling in school and stuff. So I've always been a hard charger, a team leader kind of guy. So
Good. By the way, when you separated, what rank were you when you separated?
Staff Sergeant E5.
E5.
Yeah, I made Staff Sergeant 3 years under the zone.
Okay. All right. Okay. Let's see. You enlisted. You weren't drafted.
Correct.
Right. What year did you go in?
78.
78.
Yeah, I was what I call a GI Bill tweener. They had only had the VEET, Veterans Educational Assistance Program,
right,
which kind of sucked, right? You know, it was a matching fund education program. So I served 2 years under Jimmy Carter when there was no GI Bill, and then 4 years under Reagan, or 2 years active duty under Reagan, where there was still no GI Bill until after, I was eventually honored and discharged. So I missed out on the GI Bill. So when I finally did leave the National Security Agency and went to school at University of Maryland for electrical engineering, I had to work like 25 hours a week at Montgomery Warren selling tires in Annapolis, Maryland, to pay my own way through college. That was a tough road to hoe.
Right.
I made it through.
Where were you living prior to the service?
I was living in Great Bend, Pennsylvania, just below the New York State border, below Binghamton, New York.
Right. Okay.
Little town in the middle of pretty much nowhere.
Gotcha. So where'd you go to basic training?
Lackland in Texas.
Right.
San Antonio.
Right. And how was that? How were the instructors?
Oh, they were a riot. They're Air Force drill sergeants, right? They're not like Marine drill sergeants. So they play tough, and my drill sergeant was Sergeant Stackhouse, right? And he wasn't really a yeller, right? But his boss, this tech sergeant, whose name I don't remember, the one thing I remember him saying was I'll rip your head off and defecate down your neck. Airman. Oh my God. I had never heard that before in my life. anyway, so it was always a challenge for me to not laugh, because I was like, you know, I could see what they were doing. They're trying to, you know, remake us, tear us down and build us up, you know, shaving the head and all that. And I was all in, right? And Sergeant Stackhouse one day appointed me, put me in there as what they call the door guard. For,
yeah,
you know,
dorm guard.
Dorm guard, right? And he told me in advance that I was going to be put under test. You know, they were going to raid us on my flight. And so one of the things he told me is that if somebody comes to the door and flashes an ID badge, you don't let them in, no matter who the heck they are, unless the badge has a number between X and, you know, X and Y, right? And I don't remember what the range was, what the numbers were, but that's what he told me. So here comes the guy who says defecate down your neck guy, comes to the door, flashes a badge, demands he lets me in. And I just had I didn't have enough time to look, so I asked him to put it up again. He did. I asked him to put it up a third time. He did. And finally, okay, it's within the range, acceptable number. So I let him in. And the first thing he does to me, he says, "What was the number on my badge?" And I said, I stopped for a minute, and I froze like a deer in the headlights. And I said, "I don't remember the number, Sergeant, but I remember it was within the required range." And he turned to my drill sergeant and said, "Dorm guard pass." I mean, these memories, you know, I also qualified as a marksman on the M16. You know, I'm a believer in the Second Amendment, all of the Second Amendment, not the second half, not only the second half of the Second Amendment. So, you know, I respect firearms. I was a hunter. I had a 12-gauge pump shotgun, I hunted small game. I had a deer rifle, 30 Marlin. But then I as I matured, I sort of graduated to bigger things.
Right.
Raising a family, a career, you know, mortgage, and coaching my kids, you know, teams and stuff. And I just didn't have any time for that anymore. And so, but like I said, I still, you know, firm support in that. And I have a way to help reduce the number of mass murders of children with firearms in America that I'll have to talk about later.
Right.
Right. But anyway, I'll stop.
Yeah,
there.
we'll get to it. No, that's fine. That's fine. We want to hear what you have to say about the current events, issues like that that are relevant to what's going on today. Okay. So did you overall boot camp like it, love it, hate it?
Oh, I love it. I got to shoot an M16. I got to lead our flight as we marched to the firing range, because I was like the call and response leader.
Right.
So I made up my own lyrics, making fun of our staff sergeant by name, and I would, you know, I don't know, but I've been told, and then they, you know, and I dropped in a dig on Sergeant Stackhouse, and I looked over at him, and he had this smile on his face. He's marching right, you know, next to us.
Right.
So yeah, so it was, you know, other than getting my head shaved, which I hated, right? Taking your hair taken off.
Gotcha. Where'd you go to tech school?
Well, I spent 47 weeks in Korean language school at the Defense Language Institute in Monterey, where we had, you know, Army linguists, Navy, Marines, you know, all make the joint, basically classrooms, and that was tough. That was tough. 8 hours a day, 5 days a week for 47 weeks. Korean.
Learning, that's what I was
saying. Learning the Korean language, studying at night. I was always tutoring other students because I was pretty good at it. Back then I had a good memory.
I hear you.
Right?
I got you.
And I graduated in the top 3 of the class. Got the certificates to prove it. I had all the receipts.
Right.
And then they shipped me to Goodfellow Air Force Base, which is the Air Force Crypto School.
Okay. Where? What state?
San Angelo, Texas. And where you basically, you know, learn how to apply your language skills to the actual mission, right? It's an intelligence mission, right? So I graduated top of my class there, and I spent my evenings tutoring, you know, other students that were struggling and stuff. So, and then from there I went to survival training in Spokane, Washington, where resistance training, you know, they teach you how to resist interrogation, wilderness survival, POW boot camp, mock boot camp, and stuff like that, where they lock you in boxes overnight and stuff like that, give you a taste. So that was an interesting experience. So, and then they shipped me over to Korea, Osan Air Force Base, where We did the mission, and which I can't talk about really, other than that I'm a Korean linguist and intelligence analyst.
So, did you see any combat?
No,
Okay.
I was a REMF.
A what?
A rear echelon MF.
Okay.
You know what I mean? So, but you know, Osan Air Force Base is what, 50 miles from the DMZ, right?
All right, well, here we go. So after basic training, what was your first duty station? After tech school?
It was Osan Air Force Base in Korea.
Okay, and how long were you there?
For a year. I PCS over there for a year and served for a year.
Uh-huh.
And we stood watch against the North Korean enemy. I sat watch.
Right.
We had intelligence collection assets that I can't talk about.
Right.
And I loved that job. I loved that job.
Uh-huh.
And
how did you go out on the economy? Did you interact with the Koreans?
oh yeah.
And how was that?
It was great. I mean, they were all like, oh, our unit was, the nickname for our unit was Skivvy 9. And it's like a famous intelligence unit if you do any research on it. But it was the 6903rd Electronic Security Squadron. And the Koreans, the locals, came up with the nickname, shorthand. They call it Skivvy 9.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So that's the unit nickname, Skivvy 9.
Right.
So you can see it on Facebook and stuff. So we supported the local orphanage. We had a daiquiri booth that we manned, and I was a young man at the time, 20 years old, and once I had my first daiquiri in the daiquiri booth as a worker, working the booth, I was like, whoa, I like these daiquiris. And it turned out that my commanding officer, Colonel Dowdy, was manning the daiquiri booth along with me that day. And after like my second or third daiquiri, and by the way, I was a mess back then because I got dumped while I was overseas. My girlfriend dumped me, so I was like, woo. And Colonel Dowdy turns to me and says, "You're drinking up all the profits." And because of my stupidity, that's why I didn't get the recommendation to go to the Air Force Academy. Right? At least that's my working theory. I don't have evidence of that, but I can't think of anything else because I was a stellar performer, right? And so,
gotcha.
Yeah, so that's the story of how John got nailed at the daiquiri booth. that was raising funds for the Korean orphans, and I was drinking up the profits.
Wow.
You know, that's like pretty lame in retrospect, right? I just didn't have a concept of that.
Well,
You know, I was caught up in my own crap.
right. Well, we were all young ones.
Yeah.
So anyway, so you were in Korea for a year.
Right.
Where was your next duty station?
NSA headquarters, Fort Meade, Maryland.
Okay. And how long were you there?
I spent a year and a half
Uh-huh.
doing the same job, but basically that I was doing in Korea, just at NSA headquarters.
So you were translating? What were you doing? With the
Well, I was
Korean
I'm not
language?
going to talk about what I was doing, but I was a Korean linguist and an intelligence.
Gotcha.
So you can use your imagination.
I got it.
Right? Had a top secret SCI security clearance,
Right.
polygraph examination, and all that. So.
Were there, okay, so where did you go after, so how was, would you say, where was, in Maryland?
Yeah.
So how was the tour?
It was awesome. It was awesome.
Okay.
You know, I got promoted. I made staff sergeant.
Mhm.
My boss recommended me for that and gave me a stellar performance report. And I was living right there in the barracks, right across the Air Force barracks, right across the parking lot from the NSA headquarters.
Right.
So I walked to work.
Right.
And I was going to. I wanted to get out to go to college to get my electrical engineering degree at Penn State. Right? But when I decided to leave to come off active duty in 1982, I didn't think I would be able to get past the first year because of money. Right? So
Because of what?
Because of money. I didn't have the money. You know, the VEEP was like a lousy program. The VEEP program.
Gotcha.
So I ended up taking a job as a civilian federal employee at the NSA in the same office for the next 2 years. And then after that, I left NSA in 1985 and started going to college for electrical engineering, and I ended up graduating the University of Maryland with a BS in electrical engineering in 1988. And then I started my double E career from there.
Your what?
My electrical engineering career.
Oh, wow. Okay. Nice. Yeah, I was going to ask you about education. Is that the highest degree that you have, a BS?
Yes.
Okay, all right. Cover
Yeah,
that.
I've done a little master's level study. I've taken a couple courses in a master's program at University of Maryland University, global campus, for a master's in cybersecurity management and policy. But due to events that happened up in DC 2 years ago, or last year, I couldn't complete it. That's another story.
Right.
So yeah, so the highest degree I have is bachelor's.
Okay. Okay, where was your was that your last duty base? In Maryland?
Yes.
It was? Okay. Did you do reserve time?
Yeah, I was active reserve for 2 years.
Where?
And right there, Fort
Oh,
Meade.
okay.
There's a rapid deployment force signals intelligence unit that operates out of Fort Meade. I don't remember the unit number. But they flew what's called comfy Levi missions, which are signals intelligence, airborne reconnaissance missions on the C-130s. And so I joined that unit, and then they sent me back to survival school in Spokane to give me some special resistance training where they really interrogate you.
Right.
And then we deployed twice during my active reserve service. Once back to Korea, Osan Air Force Base for a team spirit exercise.
Yeah.
And then again to Nellis Air Force Base, where they were holding the green flag exercises, which is electronic warfare exercises. So and then I left. Then I got out and went to work at NSA after that. And, now my first engineering job was working on cockpit modifications for Air Force C-130s and C-141s. So I was designing cockpit modifications to replace analog flight instruments with flat panel liquid crystal displays.
Right.
So my first several years as an engineer, I worked on those aircraft, and then I worked on the Navy A6 to make it night vision goggle compatible, and then I did another cockpit modification project for the U.S. Coast Guard. It was an HH-65 helicopter, so that the pilots could fly with NVGs when they do search and rescue and drug interdiction. So that was sort of my electrical engineering part of my career. And then the internet came along.
Okay.
That changed everything.
So, okay. Any casualties in any of your units throughout the military?
Not that
Okay. How about all the places that you traveled while you were in the service?
Well, I think I've already covered them all.
Okay.
Other than what I've already talked about. No, when I was in Korea, this is sort of a trip in and of itself. I took a tour. I went up to the DMZ and I took a tour. And so the North Korean enemy is standing 20 feet in front of you, and the DMZ is literally the painted line right between you. And it was interesting because all the North Korean soldiers had these ridiculous hats on and smiles on their faces and all this. They looked like clowns. And then if you look at all the South Korean and Americans that are on our side of the DMZ, the American soldiers were these big, huge soldiers. It was like serious ass faces, right? Like pros, like professionals. It was like a striking difference. And when I saw Donald Trump shaking the hand of Kim Jong-un, and that love affair he's got with Kim Jong-un, he still has that love affair, he's never renounced it. That just pisses me, of all people, that pisses me off. That just pisses me off. It's a creepy love affair. Creepy love, anyway, enough about that.
Okay. Just a couple more things. Medal citations.
Air Force Achievement Medal, Marksmanship Medal. I got citations for graduating top of my classes and from basic training as well. So that's it.
Okay. All right. Okay. How was the food all the way through the military?
It was good. I never really had an issue with the food. You know, it's not like we were living off of MREs, right?
Right, yeah.
In the field, right? Yeah, it was adequate for me, and I tell you, when I was in Korea, that morale, recreation, and welfare,
Yeah.
that program at Osan was excellent. They had a movie theater, bowling alley. We had intramural football, softball. It kept us healthy, you know, our minds healthy,
Okay.
and all that. They had bands that would come through, you know, USAF, and so I always appreciated that, and I really appreciated that when I was there.
Did you ever have any issues staying in touch with your family while you were in service?
You know, back then we didn't have the internet.
Right.
So yeah. I was lonely a lot, you know. I was
Struggle.
Yeah, it was a struggle. Especially the first 2 years. You know?
Right.
And especially at basic, you know, the first time you break away.
What, do you feel like that job that you had was stressful?
No, it was challenging.
Challenging.
And I became good at it. So I was very motivated. I had fire in my belly, you know, and I always like to try to you know, raise all ships, everybody in the team, right, to take us to the next level. And that's what I felt I was put there for.
Okay. Where did you go on leave?
On leave?
Yeah.
I flew back home on a what do you call it, a MAC flight.
Right.
For Christmas in 1980, I guess, or 81. And I spent a month back at home, and then I flew back. And quite frankly, I don't remember much else as far as leave comes.
Okay. All right. Tell me 2 of your most memorable thoughts, moments in the service.
Well, I can't talk about that one because it's classified.
Okay.
I got a story here. Now
What do you got?
Yeah. My roommate at language school, Dave Jones, was a Chinese linguist, so we shared a barracks, you know, room together. And he had sprained his ankle really bad and had it wrapped up and had crutches. And we were in the cafeteria in our barracks,
Right.
eating breakfast, and I played a little prank on the guy next to me. I slipped pickles into a sandwich while he was getting his drink or something, right? So I just was playing a prank on a guy that's a linguist, and the guy came back and he bit into his sandwich, realized that it had been tampered with, and he took his foot and he stomped it on my best friend's ankle with crutches.
Oh, Lord.
And I called him out. I called him outside. Right? I called him out in the parking lot. It was like a horseshoe-shaped barracks. So here we are in the middle of the courtyard of the barracks, and I took that guy down with one punch.
Wow.
And there were guys looking from the windows, and I've never. I'm not a violent man. I'm not.
Okay. I get it. All right.
And he was never a problem again.
Oh, I guess. don't brag. Where were you? Where were you the day that your service ended? You were in Maryland.
Yeah, in Maryland, Fort Meade.
Okay. Okay. So now let's go after the service. What did you do?
Well, I went to college, and then I started my electrical engineering career at a company called AirLink, and where I modified cockpits.
Right. And the military did pay for your education, right?
No.
No. Did you go to college while you were in service?
I took night classes, you know, like calculus.
But those were paid for by.
Those were paid for.
Those-
But there was just a couple of them.
But when you got out, you didn't you get some part of the GI Bill?
No.
Why not?
I was not in when the GI Bill was active. I was a tweener, a GI Bill tweener. Right? You know, and why Congress didn't rectify that? They left, you know, tens of thousands of veterans without the GI Bill that they could have easily, you know, with a single, you know, bill or statute, they could have reinstated or instated GI Bill benefits back in whatever that was, 1978 to 19 whatever. But I wasn't really politically aware back then. I wasn't really an advocate for anything, quite frankly, like I am now. So yeah, I got one small grant from the state of Maryland, but mostly I paid my own way as I went by working 25 hours a week selling tires at Montgomery Woods. I learned that I was actually a pretty good salesman. That's how I learned how to sell.
Okay.
Right.
Okay, let's see.
So remember what I said, that then the internet happened, right?
Right, yeah.
So after like 6 years working on aircraft cockpits, right, I had risen to the level of head of R&D at this company, and my buddy showed me the Mosaic web browser on his PC, his IBM PC, and he said, "Hey," I said, "What's that?" He said, "This is the World Wide Web, and this is a web browser. It's called Mosaic." And I looked at it, and he showed me how to click on a hypertext and blah blah blah, and I was like, boom, my mind raced ahead like 10, 20 years, and I realized this is going to change everything. The whole world is going to change. And I realized that in that moment. And so I pitched the CEO of my company to allow me to get our company up on the web with a corporate website. And he dressed me down, told me the internet was just a fad, and I swore I was going to get fired. But I backed down. I ran an insurgency. I got 3 or 4 VPs, including my boss, on my side to pitch in funds. And on January 1st, 1996, Arik Incorporated launched on the web. And because of me.
Okay.
And because of the VPs that I was able to get the support.
Congratulations.
So that experience was a defining moment in my life. I knew when I ever get in any endeavor and I know something and I know I'm right about something and that others are wrong, I will work my butt off to change your belief system.
Okay.
To change your mind, right? I don't just give up on people, right? I like my powers of persuasion. I have those. The Lord's endowed me with those, and so I didn't realize I had that until then.
Really?
So that's carried me through my whole career, and even now, that lesson I learned on how to deal with a company or a boss or an executive or a politician, whatever.
Right.
That just ain't getting it.
Okay.
Right? And how you get them from A to B. So that's something I bring to bear even today in all I do.
Okay. Let's see. Maintain any friendships from the military?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Especially since Facebook came along, right?
Right. Right.
Yeah. My fellow Korean linguists, my best friends were Chinese linguists and Korean linguists, and we served side by side with in Korea and elsewhere. And the internet's really, and the Facebook has really allowed us to reconnect.
Okay. All right.
In fact, the first donation for my campaign, $25, came from a fellow Korean linguist I served with.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Her name is Jennifer Monahan. Thank you, Jen.
Okay. All right. Any reunions, veterans organizations that you're a member of?
The only one I'm a member of is the Prop Wash Gang, which is a club that is airborne reconnaissance pilots and vacciners. The Prop Wash is like the C-130, right? Prop Wash. So they're called the Prop Wash Gang, and I'm a member of that because of I was an airborne linguist. Well, I became an airborne linguist, not just a ground linguist. So I flew in the back of the seat, cabin of the C-130 with our equipment. Wasn't a pilot, but that got me my wings, right? And so they inducted me in as a member a couple years ago when I applied. So yeah.
Okay. All right. Just a few more questions. How did your service and experiences affect your life?
It taught me discipline. It got me on mission, and it taught me what that meant. How to get on mission and stay on mission. How to get inside your enemy's decision cycle and stay there to defeat him. And how to build teams and how to lead. Those skills are invaluable and still are today.
Uh-huh. Okay, how did your service experience, did your military experience influence your thinking about war or about the military in general?
Yeah, it did. I served my first 2 years under Jimmy Carter, and that was in the aftermath of the Vietnam War. And if you walked outside the base in your camos back then, you might get spit on, right? Because soldiers and servicemen were not respected by many people. They were blamed for the Vietnam War. It wasn't, they were following orders. So, but then Ronald Reagan came into office.
Uh-huh.
And all of us, and just like, almost like that, well, like that, the hostages in Iran were freed. He doubled our pay. And all of a sudden, we were proud to walk off base in our uniforms again.
Right.
And that's why, more than anything, why I became a Reagan Republican, and I remained what I consider a Reagan Republican for 4 decades. And now, I'm running for Congress here in the 13th Congressional District of Florida, and my label for me, myself, in my heart and in my mind, I'm a Reagan Democrat.
Okay.
Right. So that's sort of a new thing, and that's how I feel. That's how I look at myself, and what my belief system is based on those principles of both. More liberal on a lot of the social issues. You have a national security hawk and a supporter of the military. The safety of our people, especially our children, there's no higher calling. And the fact that kids are dying in the streets from these mass murderers and stuff, and all we got is thoughts and prayers, and a whole bunch of crap. There's a whole bunch of crap. And I got a solution that's based on science, technology, engineering, math, that I'm going to be rolling out through the course of my campaign. And I'm going to show what STEM, when properly applied to social problems, can do to bring us together in a way that is not happening today. No one seems to have figured out the magic, how to heal, how to weave back together our fabric of our society into something that resembles what we all look like on the morning of the day on 9/11, right, when we were all joined together in one common cause. So I'm on a mission to get us back there. That's why my slogan is Building Florida, Save America.
Nice.
If you go to my campaign website, voteliccione.org.
Okay. There you go. Is there anything else that you would like to add that we have not covered in this interview?
Yeah, I'd like to talk about the future. Right? I think it was Henry Kissinger that said, if you don't know where you've been, if you don't know where you are, and you don't know where you're going, all roads lead to nowhere. And so, where I sit in this point in human history, in this space and time, what I see is that a good part of our country has seemed to have forgotten where we've been. Whether it's the First Amendment, freedom of speech, civil rights, human rights. Everywhere I go here in Florida, it seems like there is a certain element that only agrees with free speech if you agree with them. But if you disagree with them, you get canceled. And, I guess both sides get accused of that, but I experience it literally every day when I interact with the public in one form or another.
Right.
So there's the where we've been part, there's where we are, right? We're in this state of mess right now, this division, that's really coming from Vladimir Putin through his puppets in various positions in the U.S. government. Not to mention my own opponent, Anna Paulina Louie here in Florida. But it's what's the future going to look like? What future do we want to look like? Can we visualize success? What does victory look like, right? Well, I've gamed these out, and over the course of my campaign, I'm going to be rolling out these goals and the plans to achieve those goals using STEM and other techniques that I've learned over 30 years in industry, in high-tech industry, and we're going to solve these intractable problems like mass. We're going to reduce the mass murder of kids by 50% year over year for the next 5 years. I got a plan and strategy and a methodology that's going to deliver against that goal, and that's just one example. That's sort of the worst of the worst societal problems we have. So it's basically my mission, at the top line of my mission, it's kids first. Kids first, kids first, kids first. A society that turns a blind eye to mass murder and rape of children is destined to be thrown onto the ash heap of history unless we can turn this around. So that's why I'm running, and that's my mission in life right now. And I feel like with all these things I've done and accumulated in my life in terms of skills and things like that, that God has put me here on this earth, that God had a plan for me, and I've been put on this earth with these skills at this moment in human history, and I feel really like oh man, this is my time to be the tipping point, to be the change I want to see in the world. This is my opportunity to save democracy, save Ukraine, Florida, and let's flip the script on Putin and solve this Putin-Trump problem. And this is the way we're going to do it.
Okay. Well, I want to thank you for a very, very interesting interview. And I also want to thank you for your service to the country.
Thank you. Same to you.
You're more than welcome. My pleasure too.